Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today in War Thunder we have another Devblog, and this is the first naval vessel that we're going to be seeing in Update 1.85, or at least the first released one that we know about. Right now, before this Devblog, we've had a bunch of Italian vehicles. We've obviously had a look at the F-100D and the supersonic jets idea, and also now we have the Krasny Krym. The Krasny Krym is another Soviet light cruiser of the same family of the Kavkats, which we see in game, and there are some general differences, mainly in the speed of the vessel, and also mainly with the armament that it has. It seems like this is more of a lesser version than the Kavkat. Now, a lot of people have been asking for larger ships, basically instead of just light cruisers, let's go into heavy cruisers, and let's go into battleships, or let's go into frigates or corvettes, all of this stuff. Well, in order to do that, Gaijin obviously has to flesh out the top tier. With only one light cruiser per nation that is in the game right now, obviously this doesn't really suit the fact of going on to the next tier. You can't just make one of every ship, especially with the new system that they have, where they have the different research tree, where instead of actually instead of just researching down a line, you are kind of researching horizontally, and you're researching a type of ship instead of, just down a certain specific line of ships. So, with this said, the Krasny Krym coming in at rank 4 for the Soviets, it really isn't that much of a surprise. The fact that it's coming out in Update 1.85 for me is a little bit of a surprise, because I thought that in Update 1.85, with all the other stuff, such as the Italians, the supersonic stuff, that would be pretty much it, and maybe we get a Royal Navy OBT. Because remember, the Royal Navy technically, I believe, is still in CBT right now. So my guess would be that would be the big naval thing. And also we've seen a new naval game mode be added, the new domination style of game mode. That to me looks really fun. But no, on top of it, we're getting some more stuff, including the Krim. So that'll be nice to cover. And even though, personally, I haven't really enjoyed big ships, the destroyers are pretty much, for me, when it comes to destroyers, it's who can ammo rack the other one first. And this was so bad in one of the changelogs, about a week ago, they actually had to reduce the percentage chance of the ammo racks going off for destroyers in general. And so now it's a bit less of who can hit the ammo rack first, and a little bit more of let's see how much damage I can do with my guns. So with that said, the light cruisers, with a ridiculous amount of crew, and the fact that they're one of the only machines in the game that sometimes can survive a torpedo hit, gives them a little bit of an advantage over their predecessors. As I've said many times, one of the issues I have when looking at these larger ships is I find it very hard to envision a world where the larger ship doesn't always just win. And what I mean by larger ship, I mean more firepower, I mean, more torpedoes, I mean more AA, all of this stuff. Because when you start getting to the level of heavy cruiser, even light cruiser now, like if we look at the guns that are on this thing, it's getting kind of ridiculous. And even, the light cruisers that we have in game as well. The reason why it's getting ridiculous is just not really the amount of guns it has when it's to do with naval stuff. It's the amount of guns it has to deal with with aircraft. This Krasny Krym is seen as a less armored version of the Kavkats, right? This is the lower. This is the lower one, let's call it. Now, it has a total of 15 primary guns, which are all 130mm. Now, the way that they are actually put is, as you can see, they're all along the side of the actual ship itself. So they will only be able to shoot one way, meaning that it will be impossible to get all guns on target at once. But you can still get 8 guns at a time with a broadside volley, which is still, I would say pretty good. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. then you have the 7th on the front, and then maybe an 8th somewhere else that I'm missing. It also has the torpedoes, which you can see in these little slats here. It has 6 torpedoes either side of the machine, or at least it has 6 torpedoes on one side of it, and my guess is 6 torpedoes on the other, or maybe a few less. But with it said, it's still a ton of main guns, and if we look at the Cav Cat, this monstrosity here, with its 4 180s that it has, 2 on either side, and then all of the hundreds in the middle, yes, I would say the Krasny has better, overall firepower when it comes to its main guns, but it also has access to not the best shells, in my opinion. The shells itself aren't great compared to others, and also, with that said, the other thing to take into account is reload. So it's easier to reload generally smaller guns, and that means that the 130mm that we are seeing from the Krim is should be reloaded faster, so you should be able to get more shots off. One of the most prolific ships in the game right now when it comes to top tier is the PR-159. If you want to know what that is, it is this machine here. And the reason is even though it has only two 76mm guns, they're dual guns for a start, the reload rate on them is absolutely insane. Meaning that you can just, you're able to range your target very quickly, and you're able to pepper them with all hell with 4 76mm firing incredibly fast. Where with a Krasny Cat, if you miss your main guns, the 180s, then you are kind of just waiting for a very, very long time before they get reloaded. But anyway, back to the Krim. So, we have all of these 130mm alongside us, but that to me isn't that much of an issue. Like, the 130s will be able to do a lot of damage to a lot of other boats. But the problem I have, as I said with light cruisers in general, is this. So 4 single 45mm quick-firing cannons, 10 37mm automatic cannons, 2 quadruple 12.7mm Vickers, and 4 single 12.7mm Dishkas. So, I don't understand how an aircraft, when you have good crew, because we're still in a situation where people do not have full crews on these machines, I do not understand how a plane gets anywhere near this thing, right? So you are pretty much hoping that you have something which is similar to the Krim when it comes to ship, or you are hoping that you get a lucky torpedo hit on it or something like that, because aircraft are just out of the game. They will just get annihilated by the AA on this, and we see this with stuff like the Emden. We see stuff like on the Cav Cats and the even the Enterprise, which doesn't have as good AA on it. It's very hard for a plane to get anywhere near these things. And yes, they're kind of lumbering in a way, these machines, but they still don't really get killed by aircraft that often because of the amount of AA fire that's going off, annihilating the plane. So for me, the biggest issue with the larger ships isn't, the guns on them when it comes to ships. It's the fact that they shut down combined battles. And for me, I really like the idea of combined battles. Like, that's why, when it comes to smaller boats, that's why I also enjoy them, because I can see them in like an enduring confrontation sense. I can see them in a map like, let's say, Hokkaido, with the tanks going along the island, with the boats in the water and the aircraft everywhere. I can see a balanced battle. These machines don't perform a balanced battle because a tank or anything on the ground, as we would see, they can't do anything against these, whereas the Krim or the Cats or the Emden can just annihilate anything which is on the ground if they can hit it. So yeah, that to me is why I'm not really in favor of the larger boats going forward. But I understand a lot of people are, and once again, it's kind of like the ground forces scenario. I've heard a lot of people asking for just keep pushing forward in technology, and even though I'm not personally interested in it, I'm still, going to have a look at it and still see what I think about it and how it's going to fit. So, another thing about the Krim is that it's slower than the Cav Cats, and this does mean that it's going to be more torpedo bait, I think is going to be the way to put it, but it's still 41 kilometers an hour. it should be pretty flexible. It should be completely fine. The other thing that is not really... Well, we don't know going forward right now, but if the Soviets are the only nation which get 2 light cruisers at this moment in time, is that a good idea? I've talked about this a lot in the past, the idea of trying to balance out at least a few of the nations at the same time. And if the Soviets get 2 light cruisers at once, that basically just doubles the pool of light cruisers that they can take. And if you've ever been in a 4.0 destroyer and you've had to face a light cruiser, then you know it's not exactly the best thing to be, or even a 4.3 destroyer. The light cruiser will generally just batter you into existence, especially if that light cruiser has a good crew on it. So even one of the problems I'm running into personally is I'm trying to grind through the British destroyers because I'm trying to do special tasks with them, and that's forcing me to play them. The G class gets HE as standard. Now, luckily I have this SAP now, but it gets HE as standard. It only has 57mm of pen. And you know what's wonderful about all of these, well, at least the Cats, when it comes to its armor? It can just ricochet the HE. Like here. And the Krim has the same thing. Like, the Krim has a very similar armor profile to what the Cats has, if we actually look at it right here. So it has the main belt armor consists of cemented 76mm, so same as the Cats. Upper belt armor is 25mm, and the conning tower has 125. So if we have a look, 125, 25, 75. Right, it's exactly the same, basically. Like, so the Krim and the Cats have the same armor, but the Krim has, I would say, less firepower when it comes to its main guns, but it still has a lot of other firepower, which is obviously good for it, and it is a little bit slower. So this is a worse version of the Cats. Now the question is, what BR do you put this at? Is this a 4.7? The destroyers right now range from 4.0 to 4.3. The light cruisers are 5.0s. But this is obviously worse than the Cats. So, do you put this thing at the same BR, or do you put it at 4.7? And if you do put it at 4.7, I think you would see the Krim a hell of a lot more than the Cats. Because the problem that the Cats has is that it always will face more light cruisers and more destroyers, where the Krim will get down-tiered a lot more into even stuff which aren't destroyers. So, maybe it comes in at 5.0? My guess, or what I would personally do, is I would put it at 5.0, just to try and negate a problem that it would have in a full down tier, because obviously being at the top dog, you know, the 5.0 battle rating, one of the nice things about it for the Krasny is the fact that it can't get up tiered, so it's always going to be the top dog. Another thing that needs to be thought about is the elevation and depression of these guns. How far will they actually be able to fire? I think this is less of a consideration. I think they should be completely fine firing at the ranges that we have in War Thunder, and also because of its slow nature, will it have a massive effect on the battle? One of the things I've been personally finding while using destroyers is it's been really fun, shooting at other destroyers, but I don't really feel like I'm actually influencing the battle. Like, I literally had a match the other week where it was me and this one destroyer for 10 minutes just shooting each other, setting each other on fire and trying to kill each other. And we just spent the whole match just slogging rounds at each other. Neither of us killed each other, and the game had ended. Like, that was the whole match for me. And I feel like as we get more of these larger ships, and also a reduction in stuff like the RNG for the ammo explosion, which I agree with, and not an increase for the guns, then we're going to have a lot more of these scenarios. So even though we're getting the Krim, is it going to influence battles a lot, or is it just going to be another one of those very slow machines that is just going to go around and not really do a lot, apart from every so often donk a destroyer? We're going to have to see in the game. Personally, I want to know if in their plans they want to go bigger with the ships, because the maps don't really facilitate it, and also we are already seeing issues with aircraft and anything getting close to these. And as I said before, I don't like this mentality that bigger guns make things better. I would rather they focused on the game modes, getting the convoy game mode and stuff sorted instead of larger ships. But we'll see in the next year, what direction they go in when it comes to Navy. So far, it's been looking great, at least for me in the lower tiers, and I'm hoping to see other nations as well. Let's get our Italy, let's get our France, let's get our Japan. Once they're here, then we can start focusing on adding more vehicles such as the Krim to the game. I think that would be much better to do. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.